And when you hear that music, it's time to enter the dojo. And we're happy to have you here with us for another episode of the Devy Dojo. I am your Devy Sensei, and I am here once again, and as always, with my good friend and co-host, Chris, the Devy Shifu. And look, we got another banger for you today. But before we get into that and the specifics of the episode, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this show, which is Blue Chip. Look, we've talked about it a lot already. It's a fantastic app created by the tremendous Will Stone, man. He's really been listening to the community and developed an app for us C2C fanatics, us Devy addicts, all of those of us degenerates who partake in college fantasy football formats in general. He has created this app that allows us to combine Devy, your college NCAA rosters and C2C together with your Dynasty rosters all in one place. It's been tremendous, man. He just recently uploaded all the NFL picks, and right now all of our Devy leagues, Chris, you're in there with me, we're starting the transition where we're moving them over. And I just have to say it's been pretty seamless so far. So really excited to be done with spreadsheets and all of that stuff. So if you haven't checked it out, it is available on the App Store and on iOS. So make sure that you go in there and search Blue Chip, download the app, hop in our Discord Devy Dojo to talk to Will Stone himself. We'll get you connected with a bunch of mocks that we're doing internally as well as externally with other members of the Blue Chip community. So make sure that you join in the links of this video today. But now, Chris, let's go ahead and get into tonight's episode, man, because this is kind of a continuation of last week's Way Too Early 2027 mock, and I'm super excited to get into it today, Chris.
Yeah, this was a really fun one. We had our friend Ben once again join us for the mock draft, as well as Josh, who's another guy. He writes for us on our Substack. He's kind of been holding it down on the Substack. So if you've been hanging out in the Devy Dojo Substack, he's been the one that's posting the most regularly. He's got some great insight. So he was the fourth person in our mock, but we did a combined 2025, 2026, 2027 mock. So all of those rookies from those 3 years, where would you take them if you had them in a pool of players together? And it was fun. I mean, there was a little bit of surprises there. I felt like at times I was getting good values. At times I was like, maybe like I'm a little confused about where to go here, because you start to get a different sense of, the talent drop-offs. And overall, of course, the talent is loaded, especially in the first round. But it's a fun little exercise to do. And we're doing 2 rounds today. And we're going to continue this next week. We're going to do rounds 3 and 4 as well. So you're going to really see the full gamut of trying to combine all these players together. And this will give you a sense, especially right now in rookie draft season. I know a lot of rookie drafts are done, but you're going to be doing some startups. You're going to be doing some later rookie drafts. You're going to be doing whatever, and get a feel for like the 2026 class. We've been saying it's not good. This will kind of give you an idea of exactly how they fit in with the 25 and 27 classes.
I feel like we're introducing some Devy concepts to maybe an audience, our Dynasty friends here who aren't necessarily familiar with this. And this is in what we're doing all the time. We're valuing our current assets that are in the NFL, the ones coming in, and of course the future classes. How do you evaluate, how do you value them? How do you project them going forward? And that's exactly what we're going to do tonight. We're going to put them all 3 classes on the board, and we're going to see which ones we prefer, Chris. So without further ado, let's jump right into it.
First up, this is probably not a surprise, but Jeremiah Smith, the king in waiting, is the first overall pick, even with all 3 of these classes. I don't really think that's that controversial, though. He's an extremely talented wide receiver. We've seen him absolutely dominate at Ohio State, even with really, really, really good wide receivers beside him, including other members of this pool, Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate. So he's fantastic. We're waiting for him to come out, and it's really just a matter of where does he land. We know he's going to be top 5, right? Next year, he's top 5 easy in the NFL draft. Who gets that? Is he going to land in the Jets again, and they're just going to continue to pad the receiving room there? Is he going to land with one of these other teams that aren't quite as good this year? So we'll have to see where he ultimately lands, which I think will have somewhat of an impact on his dynasty value that I think Devy people aren't quite thinking yet. but I'm not too worried because we've seen guys of his talent succeed no matter what the situation is, right? No matter who's around them, no matter who's throwing them the ball. If you're that talented, there's a good shot that you're going to have a very big impact as a rookie, and you're going to go on to have, 1,000-yard season after 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, exactly. I did like the point that you brought about potential landing spot. Chris, if he goes to the Raiders, how you feeling, man? I mean, they got a quarterback of the future, running back. Now you add a weapon like Jeremiah Smith. How would that change your evaluation of him?
It would make it go higher, honestly. I feel really good about that, especially because Clint Kubiak's there. I'm feeling better about Mendoza. We'll talk about him later. I feel like there's so much room in that wide receiver core there for somebody to really come in and be a talented guy like him. That would be fantastic. I don't know though. I'm sneaky like bullish on the Vegas Raiders this year. So we'll see what happens. But they're doing the right things. I think they're rebuilding in the right way. They're not one of these teams that I anticipate being stuck in the bottom forever. I think that they're on the upward trajectory. So I don't know that he's going to land there. But it is one of those cases where if he lands with the Jets or the Browns, that's going to really, really hurt my soul. At least if he lands with the Browns, despite the fact that there's now 1,000 wide receivers in that room with talent, he's staying in the hometown, right? He's in Ohio again. That'll be good for him. They're going to funnel him the ball just to get people to buy his jersey and show up for games. So if he ends up in Cleveland, that wouldn't be the worst thing for him. But it's just really a matter of how much volume is he going to get off the rip. But I don't really see that being an issue. Who's throwing him the ball is the biggest question mark. If for whatever reason Kyler Murray doesn't work out in Minnesota and they are stuck with J.J. McCarthy going into next year, that would be terrible, right? If he's right alongside Justin Jefferson, that's going to be a horrible landing spot for him because he's right there with another alpha. So when you're projecting the future, it's like, where's he going to be? What's going to happen? I'm not too worried about his overall talent ceiling, though.
No, there's a reason we took him 101. I mean, pretty easily. I think consensus across the board, if you were to do this with other podcasts or other just general people out there, I think that this is the answer that you would get. His skill set pretty easily for me translates to future success. I think that, the word generational is thrown around very loosely, but I think that it's appropriate in a case like Jeremiah Smith. We just saw his counterpart, Carnell Tate, go 4th overall. So I'm looking at future drafts and going, next year in 2027, where's Jeremiah Smith going to go if Carnell Tate was able to go that high? Now, of course, different type of draft. He might get pushed down due to quarterback positional value there. We don't know. I personally, Chris, before we move on, I personally would love to see him go to Miami, make a return home to Florida where he comes from. And, let's get the Fins looking good again.
Just to give everybody a quick recap, the way we're doing this, it was Josh, Ben, Dustin, and then me, Chris, the Shifu. So we each got 3 picks in each round. That's the order. So the first pick, Jeremiah Smith, was the easy pick for Josh to hit. And this is going to be Ben's pick at 102. It's Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. For me, this was a little bit high because I personally value Jeanty higher as a running back prospect than I value Love, but I get it. We were kind of ambiguous on this. We weren't going solely off of college projections. We were kind of, if you were to draft him today, there was some of that going on based on what we've seen in the NFL, yada, 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 who's around them. It's hard to not let those other nuances creep in. Jeremiah Love is landing in Arizona as a very talented running back, but I'm not in love with the landing spot. I don't think really anybody is. They have Jacoby Brissett, who I think is underrated. He's a good journeyman. He's a great, bridge quarterback. He's certainly not a stopgap. He's more of a bridge guy where you feel like he could be a good veteran that can get the offense moving. And he really showed that last year. He opened up Michael Wilson and turned him into a really good value in dynasty formats. But they also have a million running backs there, and I feel like they're going to use them. They didn't sign Algier to not use him. They didn't re-sign Connor last year to not use him, even though it's a new coaching staff. It's going to be tough for Love early on. I don't anticipate him being an absolute smash in redraft formats, especially for this year. I think that it's a little bit of a dicey situation he landed in. However, the talent deserves top 5 pick in this draft that we're doing here with this mock between these 3 classes. 102, again, is a little bit high for me. What do you think about that, Dustin?
I think it's higher than I would have taken him, but I don't hate the pick because I understand the reasoning behind it. I do like that you mentioned the money that they paid Algier. Buddy, they're paying Jeremiah Love 53 million guaranteed dollars. Like, believe me, they're going to use him. And if you
Very
just
true.
look at the past usage that Mike LaFleur uses, going back to his offensive coordinating days for the New York Jets, rookie Brees Hall in 7 games had 31 targets. He likes to funnel the offense through those running backs, specifically in the receiving game. And, that's Jeremiah Love's bread and butter. I think that he could be utilized as a wide receiver better than he was at Notre Dame, just being completely honest with you. So I have no problem with it. Maybe a little high. I think traditionally, if I was doing this, I'd probably want to build around the wide receivers, but I absolutely love Jeremiah. Number 3, Chris, was my pick. And I went with Tetairoa McMillan of the Carolina Panthers. And again, when you're doing this type of stuff, when we're playing Devy, we always prioritize, right? And we preach this, we always prioritize NFL production first. Meaning, not necessarily production, but just being able to make it to the NFL. I'm going to prioritize that over, maybe somebody in 2027 that's pretty tantalizing as a wide receiver. We'll talk about him later. But Tet McMillan, man, came in as a rookie. I believe he was the 8th overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. And he just went in and immediately was the alpha, man. I mean, Bryce Young is whatever, however you want to feel, but Tet McMillan had over 1,000 yards as a rookie there for the Carolina Panthers, and he was really the entire passing offense, man. He dominated the target share there. I mean, it wasn't even close. So I'm going with Tet here because of what he was able to do as a rookie, because I've already seen him do it, even though there's some guys in 2027 that I think could potentially be better. I've already seen it with Tet, and it's a little bit of a safer pick here. So that was my reasoning for it, Chris. So what were your thoughts on Tet?
I really enjoy Tet as an overall prospect. I think that he has snuck up my rankings even compared to going into last season as a rookie. He would have been my 102. Maybe the guy who I took at 104 might have been 102, but it would have been a really, a coin flip. Because I think he's fantastic. He showed that he can survive in the NFL. He's shown that he can be a workhorse. And he's really, like, the analytics have shown he's a separation master. So all of the things that you like to see, the underlying stats and the actual base stats, are showing that he's going to smash in the future. I think he's still a good value. He's a little bit underrated in Dynasty. So for that reason, I would have been really, really close to taking it at 102. You guys let Arch Manning fall to me at 104. I would easily take Arch over Jeremiah Love. We even had a debate. We have a short on our new YouTube channel, the Devy Dojo, of us talking about Arch Manning versus Jeremiah Smith as the potential Dynasty 101 next year. And I think it's honestly going to be close. I think that he's got a really good shot to be 101 in the NFL draft. And I think that he's extremely talented. I'm certainly more bullish than a lot of people are on Arch Manning. But you know what I always look for in quarterbacks, and if you're a follower of the Dojo, you know this. I want that running upside. And I don't want the Justin Fields type where you're going to be a running upside for 1 year. I want the kind that you're going to be on the field for a long time. If I'm drafting you in my dynasty, I want you to be there for 3, 4, 5 years plus. Arch Manning obviously has the name value, which some people would say, oh, it's just the name. That doesn't matter because the NFL teams are going to think the same thing. They want the Manning name in their brand, right? They want the Manning name to be their number 1 pick that year. And he showed that he is a fantastic quarterback. Last year, he started a little bit slow. It was his first year as the full-time starter. He finished the year in PFF with the 8th overall grade as a passer, and he had 10 rushing touchdowns last year. So this is exactly the type of quarterback that I'm looking for when I'm talking about Devy. This is a guy who I can put my name on and say, I'm happy to take him extremely early, higher than ADP. I want him on my roster. I want to make sure that whenever he makes it to the NFL, he's going to be on my team because he can run, he can throw. The biggest thing I need to see out of him here coming into 2026 is a little bit better decision making. And I think some of that last year was because his receivers, especially Ryan Wingo, were just not making the right routes. They weren't making the right decisions, when to break, when to wait for, opportunities to catch the ball. It seemed like he was a little bit all over the place. They've kind of upgraded a bit with Cam Coleman coming in. They've changed their overall wide receiver core a bit. So I think he's going to have a better supporting cast. He's going to be a little bit more comfortable here in 2026. I think him coming back was a good choice, even in this weak class of quarterbacks, because he's got a real shot to be 101 next year in the NFL draft.
You know, Chris, I increasingly find myself rooting for chaos. What if Arch Manning didn't declare for 20? You know, he's still technically got another year of eligibility if he so chooses. Wouldn't that just be hilarious if he just said F this draft and I'm going to spend another year in Texas and make millions of dollars, you know, just profit off that name and take advantage of NIL. But I don't really foresee a future where that happens unless he completely tanks. So definitely hoping for that to not happen. And I know he's a big name. We were both very critical of him at the start of the season with his mechanics, but, you know, towards the end of the season, he definitely put it on. You did highlight some of the receivers making drops, not running good routes. I did want to quickly highlight before we move on. You know, he ended the season with a 60% completion percentage, but when you look at the adjusted completion percentage, it spikes all the way up to 73%. So, I mean, that kind of, the numbers tell you the story right there. Little bit of his fault with those early season mechanics. Definitely was let down a little bit by the wide receivers. So we're hoping that with Cam Coleman going there, we can now relegate Ryan Wingo to a position and role in this offense that's really more conducive to his skill set. So I'd be very happy with Arch Manning at 104. We know in Dynasty rookie drafts, he's likely to go higher.
All right, next at 105, we have Ashton Jeanty. This was Josh's pick, so this is starting us back over in our rotation of the four of us. And like I said, I love this pick because I have him higher than Jeremiah Love. I think this is a great spot to grab him. I think he showed last year that he really can be an absolutely great running back in the NFL behind an absolutely terrible, terrible offensive line. He had some of the best metrics in the NFL as far as yards after contact, and his average depth of contact was behind the line of scrimmage. So he was getting hit as soon as he touched the ball because they had nothing going on in Vegas last year, unfortunately. But I still believe in his overall talent. I think that he's not quite as good of a receiving talent as Jeremiah Love is, but I think as a pure runner, he's absolutely fantastic. Kind of like shades of Nick Chubb out there with a little bit more receiving juice. So I'm really excited about the future with him. Like I said earlier about Mendoza and landing spots for potentially for Jeremiah. I think that the Vegas Raiders are on the upswing, and I'm very bullish on that offense overall. So I think that he's an absolute buy right now. I think that you could have bought him probably a couple months ago for a little bit cheaper than he's going now, but he's still a really big buy for me in Dynasty.
I mean, he's a tremendous talent. We all love Ashton Jeanty. I'm not with you. I think based on skill set alone and where I see Jeremiah Love as a pass catcher, I still have him above. But I mean, Ashton Jeanty's a dude. Like, he's so much fun to watch out there. He still had over 300 receiving yards for Las Vegas last year. The only knock, you know, to pour a little bit of cold water, as you would say, Shifu, he does have Clint Kubiak, and we know what he likes to do offensively. He believes in a running back by committee, and they did bring in Mike Washington, who's no joke now. You know, fourth round capital, maybe not the best or what we would have hoped to see for Dynasty, but I mean, he's a really good running back. They have other guys in that rotation. There's going to be a little bit of a split, and I don't think enough people are talking about that. But I mean, talent over situation and everything else. Ashton Jeanty is going to get his. He's going to be the alpha and the dog in that running back room.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was at first like, oh man, this is the end for Mike Washington, especially because he was such a late round draft pick. But I did start to take a little bit of him after the first early rookie drafts because I was like, you know what? That's exactly what Kubiak does. He likes to do a little bit of rotation. And it's fun because I think both of them could theoretically handle a full workload. So having them both be on there, even if Washington's a bit more of a 1B or, you know, direct backup that gets, you know, the modern day committee 60-40 share type thing, you know, 65-35, Washington might still have a little bit of value. So I think he's kind of sneaky, especially in a really, really lame rookie class. On to 106. We have Omarion Hampton. This was Ben's pick, and I think this was a smash pick right here. I love the idea of a running back that can really handle a full workload, just being on your team. You know, this is what we talked about earlier about NFL versus Devy. Omarion Hampton's there. We know what he can do. He had a bit of a rough start because he came out hot and then he got hurt. And he still showed us that when he came back, he can handle a full workload. He's a good receiving back. He's a good 3-down back in the NFL. And we know that the Harbaughs both like to run the hell out of the ball. So Hampton here is a good pick for me.
How could you not? Especially adding Mike McDaniel as your offensive coordinator. We know what a good run game he's always going to develop in there. Plus, obviously, the Chargers have invested a lot in the offensive line. Of course, last year, all of them got hurt, including Amari and Hampton. So, projecting forward, if they could get a fully healthy season, if Joe Alt can stay healthy, if the rest of those, absolute dogs on the offensive line can stay healthy, you got Amari and Hampton in this system now, and I think he could really smash. We obviously know about his profile. Physical downhill runner with some legit speed out there. Like he's a lot faster than you would think. Obviously, that was evidenced by his 40 time at his combine. So I think that it's wheels up for Omari and Hampton. I could easily see him sliding up into that next tier of running backs for dynasty rankings after this season. And also a sneaky play for the Chargers now. Nobody's talking about, but I'm making sure to roster him, is Kamani Vidal, the running back there for the Chargers, because just of his skill set, he kind of, obviously he's not Devon Achane, but he's that type of back where he's a little smaller but more physical than you would think, and he's a really good receiver. And I think that he's going to get some real play in this offense. So sneaky play there for him. But I love this pick right here. I was shouting, man. I was like, man, that's a smash pick by Ben there. That was the guy I was going to take if he fell to me.
Yeah, certainly not, ahead of where he needs to go, but that's the exact spot to take him, I think, in this, 3-year rookie mock. All right, just a quick recap on the first half of the first round. 101, Jeremiah Smith from next year's 2027 class. 102, Jeremiah Love from this year's 2026 class. 103, Tetairoa McMillan from last year's class. 104, Arch Manning from next year's 2027 class. 105, Ashton Jeanty from the 2025 class. And 106, Omarion Hampton from the 2025 class. Moving on into the next round, we have 107, Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of OSU from this year's rookie class, landing in Tennessee. We talked about him a tiny bit for a second there with Jeremiah Smith. He's a very talented wide receiver. He's been opposite of a guy, and I think that I've been kind of pushing the buck on him ever since last August. When we started the dojo, last summer, I've been saying I really like Carnell Tate. I'm very happy. I'll do a mini victory lap, but I'm mostly just happy for him. I mean, look at his face. Look at that little graphic there. Sorry for you audio listeners, but he's just such a happy guy. He's just a fun-loving guy. He loves to play football. And now he lands with a really talented quarterback in Cam Ward, who didn't have a ton of really great offensive weapons last year. So I'm excited for him. I think he's now officially the consensus 101 wide receiver for this rookie class this year because of landing spot, because of draft capital, and because he's just a very talented guy. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do and how Cam Ward can step up, especially with Brian Daboll calling the offense down there in Tennessee.
Yeah, and if you ask Malik Neighbors, he's going to tell you that he's never been the wide receiver one in his team before. But I mean, how many people play with Jeremiah Smith now? No, come on. And he had Amika Ibuka there before too.
I don't care what Neighbors says,
I don't either.
Just worry about your rehab, bro.
Right, yeah. Right.
I appreciate that. I'm a generational hater sometimes, but man, he's just out there yapping for no reason.
Yeah, man. Don't be hating on my guy Carnell Tate, man. Let him be happy, man. He just got the bag, drafted 4th overall, the highest drafted wide receiver in Tennessee Titan history, Chris, paired with Brian Daboll, getting Cam Ward to throw him the football. Like, I was more than happy to take this 2026 draft pick, Carnell Tate here, at 107 in this combined draft, for much of the same reason that I chose Tetairoa McMillan there at 103. High-end draft capital, immediately profiles as the wide receiver one on that team. And Chris, we did do the rookie guide for FSAN there this year. Carnell Tate was one of my write-ups, and I said in my evaluation that even though he was always asked to be more of the vertical complement to Jeremiah Smith, he showed enough nuance in his route running, his tempo, the spacing. He showed a lot of just real wide receiver shit that I said that if he ever got the opportunity to be the primary on his team, he would blow up. And even though, I was a little biased Trojan fan and I did have Mekhi Lemon as wide receiver one, and I stand on that, I said, again, many times that I would not be shocked if Carnell Tate was the better professional wide receiver. And I think that he's going to have a really good chance to go out there and be immediately productive. Like you already said, he's locked and loaded for me as the consensus 102 in your 2026 Dynasty rookie drafts. And I mean, he's a top 10 pick here in this combined mock.
Yeah, I mean, great landing spot for him. We're very excited about the future for Carnell Tate. Moving on at 108, this was my pick, and I had to take my boy Jordan Tyson, who for me kind of still is wide receiver one. I had him wide receiver one coming into the draft, and obviously he's now a little bit redundant with Chris Olave, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that they can both eat in that offense. Kellen Moore really likes to spread the ball around, and I don't think that just because Olave is there, there's any reason to be shy on Jordan Tyson. The reasons that you might be skeptical are all still there, of course, which is the health issues. Can he stay healthy? Which is a thing that Olave also has on his plate. So, really, if they can both stay healthy, this is a dynamic offense. Can they succeed after the catch? At least Jordan Tyson. Can Jordan Tyson succeed after the catch? Because he has shied away from contact at times, which I think might be a product of his overall health issues. So he's not a big yak threat. He's like the polar opposite of Omar Cooper in that sense. But I really love his overall talent. I think he's the highest ceiling wide receiver in the 2026 wide receiver class. I'm excited to take him here at 108 because I feel like for me, it's wheels up on the New Orleans Saints offense. I just took him. We're doing a combined C2C right now draft, and I took him pretty early, and I also paired him with Tyler Shuck, which I was excited about because I want that duo moving forward. I think they're both a little bit underrated right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was right there with you, Chris. Entering this season, Jordan Tyson was my number one. And I think that if he had stayed healthy, he would have been the wide receiver one for most people. Dude's really talented. Obviously, we know about the injury history. I don't really hold it against him. It was a lot of just some unfortunate hits at times and just, different types of injuries. So I'm not too concerned about it. But he's incredible, man. He's just so much fun. The catch radius with this dude, the ability to just extend out and make a play without a care in the world for the harm that it puts on his body. Like, dude will put his body on the line to go make that catch, to get the first down. And that's the type of mindset that these teams need. They need these dogs. They need these leaders to propel them. And I think going to a young offense now being led by Tyler Shuck, you mentioned Kellen Moore now, I think that Jordan Tyson is just immediately going to be able to step in into maybe not necessarily a leadership position, but one for fantasy relevance for us. I think as a back end wide receiver two on your dynasty rosters, I would feel pretty comfortable with him as my wide receiver two on those teams.
109, Jackson Dart, the quarterback from last year's 2025 class in the New York Giants, who I think is maybe a little bit overvalued, but I don't hate this pick in this combined little mock that we're doing here. Because quarterback's always getting good. And like I said, he's got that rushing upside. That's what I'm always looking for. But I'm like a little bit worried about the overall offense. Maybe I shouldn't be now that John Harbaugh has taken the reins a little bit, because they're going to use him appropriately, just like they used Lamar Jackson recently and made him, two-time MVP. So maybe I should be higher on Jackson Dart. I just don't think he has the same level of arm talent that Lamar has. Lamar is a legitimately good passer, and I think people don't realize that. He's a fantastic quarterback, and he's also a legitimately talented running threat, maybe the best we've seen since Michael Vick. Jackson Dart is a very good rushing threat and a very good passer, but he's not the level of Lamar. So I'm a little bit concerned about his overall dynasty rankings right now. But at 109 right here, you can't knock it. He probably could have went a little bit earlier if you need a quarterback. He's a good threat and a good weapon, especially in superflex formats.
I like Jackson Dart, man. Obviously, people who know us know that I was a little bit of a hater because of his past with USC, but whatever. Jackson Dart, to me, went out there and proved it, Chris. I don't know how many New York Giants games you were watching. I'm assuming quite a bit, being a rival fan there. But that game against Denver, man, really sold me on him. I mean, dude went up big time against Denver. He was making play after play after play, even late into the fourth quarter to drive against that defense. Dude was fitting it in with not the best talent around him, obviously, because Malik Neighbors was out, and his best running back Cam Scadabo got injured later. There's a bunch of injuries on the team. They weren't very good overall. There's a reason Brian Daboll got fired from that team, and he showed me the ability to elevate the team around him, and I think that matters when we talk about it. I mean, he obviously gets ARA points out there. Fans love him. Even if you don't believe in the talent, he's still got a lot of that artificial value from most of your league mates. So if you want to move him or whatever, but here in a combined mock, it might be a little earlier than I would take, because I think that there's some guys in 2027 that I think have more upside than him that I would probably swing on around here. But I completely understand the pick because, again, going back to kind of our Devy game theory here, is we like to put more stock into those assets that are already in the NFL. Jackson Dart was already taken in the first round. He's already on a team. He's already showed that he can do it to a certain extent. Now, we still have questions about his game. Can he, having another year of film going into a new offense, we don't necessarily know what it's going to look like, but theoretically, he's going to get a Malik Neighbors back there now. They just drafted Malachi Fields. They got some other decent options in there. The biggest question is going to be, offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy. That's the biggest pushback for a lot of people is, Matt Nagy is his new offensive coordinator, so I'm a little hesitant to invest in him. But I get the pick, Chris, but probably not one I think either of us would make. But
yeah, I don't think so. I think I have the phrase "the Bash Brothers" in my head, so I think I'm letting Cam Scatterbo affect my analysis of Jackson Dart a little bit because I feel like just being in the same locker room as Cam Scatterbo, they just seem like an injury waiting to happen. You know what I mean? They're both extremely fun to watch play football. They're hard nosed. They both want to hit people. I think Dart even made a comment, in the middle of the season where he's like, "I'm just gonna play football. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna do the things that I want to do. This is how I play, and whatever happens, happens." And that scares me a little bit because you can't just be running. It was different when you're playing against high schoolers and against college players than it is when you're playing against the Eagles defensive line. So we'll see what happens, but maybe that's just dampening my overall value of him. He is a good pick here, but I think we're starting to see, like I talked about a little bit before, some of that teardrop. I think the first half of the first round of this draft was a tier, and then Cornell Tate and maybe like a little bit of a drop from Tyson and Jackson, and then we're having another bit of a drop for me in Cam Coleman at 110, who's obviously from next year's 2027 class. He's playing at Texas this year. Excited about him pairing with Arch Manning, who's right above him in our graphics here. But we'll see what the future holds because we both had a lot of upside projected on him, and it didn't quite show itself in Auburn. However, he didn't have a quarterback of the talent of Arch Manning. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do down in Austin and seeing if he can really become that wide receiver one in the future. Because if he can, he's going to be a very early first round pick in this year's NFL draft. I believe he coined your term "aura at the catch point," right? This was your guy that began the "aura at the catch point" process.
It is, Chris. That's exactly what I was just getting ready to say. Is this is the guy that coined that phrase because of his ability to separate vertically, right? His ability to not just high point the ball, but just climb that proverbial ladder, hang in the air, and just come down with the football at all costs. And you talked about the quarterback situation with Peyton Thorne, Ashton Daniels. He went through the ringer. It was a really bad ecosystem for Cam Coleman. And the nice thing about, again, some Devy game theory here, the nice thing about investing in wide receivers is that they maintain that value for a little longer. Even though he went through the hellscape there at Auburn, his Devy value really was unharmed. He went from being a top 4 pick in Devy startups to that's right about where he's being taken right now. And a lot of people like myself are really bullish on him now, being able to pair with Arch Manning there in Texas, a team that really needed an outside X vertical wide receiver. And that's exactly what he's going to give you. Additionally, Chris, Arch's best throw, statistically, analytically, looking at PFF, was the deep ball, pushing 20 yards down the field. And so these two are like a match made in heaven. So if all works and goes according to plan, this equals out to a potential top 10 pick in the 2027 draft in Cam Coleman here. So a lot of projection with this type of pick. But again, that's the beauty of playing Devy. You don't have your rookie pick set, so you're projecting forward in the future. And this is a guy, man, that has the pedigree going back to high school. Coming out of high school as a recruit, Cam Coleman was the second-rated recruit next to Jeremiah Smith. And in my eyes, Chris, when I look at his talent level and what Cam Coleman can be, it's right up there with Jeremiah Smith. I promise you this dude is him. He just needs the right situation. So hopefully we see that this year. He's going to be on a big stage. A lot of people weren't watching Auburn football. A lot of people who are in the Dynasty game and don't really watch college football, they're starting to hear this name now. And they're like, oh, well, I look at his numbers and He only had 708 yards last season. The year before 598 yards in 2024. What's the hype about? Like, that's not that great. Just go watch him, man. It's incredible. He ran a couple double moves, right? Jackson Arnold, one of those terrible quarterbacks he had, completely underthrew him, right? He completely sold the defender, had him biting, gone. Easy touchdown. Jackson Arnold just couldn't hit him. So maybe if we get something better with Arch Manning, Chris, people will start to know the name. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it, man. And I like that little bit of game theory that you just put in there because these guys that are those deep threat outside X receivers, they can still do other things and, make themselves available through crossing routes and just kind of be that all around wide receiver one. He does have that type of projection, just like Carnell Tate, who was a guy who was kind of typecast as being a bit more of a deep threat wide receiver too. And he's shown that he could prove it. Or a guy like Jamison Williams, who has shown that he could be more than that at the NFL. So he really does have that kind of upside where he can be a true wide receiver one in the NFL. And I really appreciate that. And also just what you said about Devy. Wide receivers always hold the best value. I was just talking to one of our biggest fans, Amir, who's in our Discord. So if you guys aren't in our Discord, make sure you click the link at the bottom of this episode so you can join us, ask us questions. But I was just talking to him today about he was trading a running back for wide receiver that were pretty similarly valued. And I said, dude, do that every time because the running backs have a bigger road to get to the NFL. Wide receivers are always going to carry more value. And Cam Coleman has proven that over the last couple of years. Into 111, we have Dante Moore, the quarterback from next year's class out of Oregon, who has much ballyhooed me, much spun me around because I was a proven hater coming in last year. I hated what I saw from him at UCLA. I had no faith in him at Oregon. And what did he do? The same thing every Oregon quarterback does. Absolutely dominated last year. He looks fantastic. His release is what always gets me, man. He is beautiful. You watch him throw the ball, and it's just like, it's poetry in motion, man. It's just a beautiful thing how quickly he gets the ball out, effortlessly throws it 40 yards down the field. He completely destroyed me, maybe ended my entire season with Penn State last year by throwing that touchdown in overtime, double overtime. So I got to give respect, man. Dante Moore for me would have been a higher pick than Jackson Dart and Cam Coleman. I'm pretty excited about Dante Moore's future.
Yeah, I think he's right now probably consensus quarterback too in the 2027 class. I'll admit there's a quarterback I thought about taking here because this was my pick, but I said I'm just going to roll with consensus here. We need to get some 2027 picks on the board to talk about them. He's a guy that probably could have and should have entered the 2026 NFL draft, and he would have been right there with Mendoza. He would have been a top 4 pick with ease. You mentioned the release, man. It's super quick, super solid. He has some struggles. He has some knocks in his game against pressure. You saw that against Indiana. But, I mean, the processing that this kid has, I'm really a big fan of Dante Moore, Chris. We've talked about it before. What I always talk about is what you go through molds you. He had a tumultuous freshman season there at UCLA where, he was a high-end 5-star quarterback, had to start right away. The problem with going with a baptism by fire, Chris, is sometimes you get burned. And my man Dante Moore got burned, went to Oregon, sat behind Dylan Gabriel, awaited his turn now, and now he showed full command of that offense. And it was like, this is the prospect that we thought we were going to get as a starting freshman for UCLA. So very happy for Dante Moore. He does have a new offensive coordinator now this year with Will Stein taking a head coach position. So interested to see if that changes anything, but I'm pretty sure it won't, man. I mean,
yeah, and potential Heisman, right? Even with Arch lurking, I could see him winning the Heisman, even if Arch gets drafted ahead of him. Very excited for his future. And quick plug on the guy that you mentioned briefly, Evan Stewart, I feel like is a severely underrated CFF and Devy value at this point because he was so high before the injury. And hopefully he can come back better. But he has a terrific offense and a terrific quarterback to return to. So we'll see what happens with Evan Stewart. But I feel like if you're playing Devy, you should go out there and see what you can get for him because he's probably like basically free at this point. My pick to end the first round was Colston Loveland, the first tight end taken off the board out of all 3 of these classes. And he really came on at the end of the year to show us exactly what he's made of. even despite my Penn State bias, I know all of you Dojo listeners out there know how biased I am towards the Penn Staters. I had him as my tight end one in last year's class, even above Tyler Warren. And I have so much Colston Loveland, and I am so happy because he is just such a talented receiver of the football. Warren is a fantastic tight end, maybe the better NFL tight end, because he can do it all. He's a fantastic blocker. He could play quarterback if you wanted him to. He could be that H-back if you wanted him to. He can do everything, and he's still a great receiver of the football. But Colston Loveland is the best pure receiver in all of these classes that we're drafting from right now as far as the tight end position. And he kind of showed it to us at the end of the year there with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. So I'm excited about the future of Colston Loveland. I was a little bit shocked that he hadn't been taken sooner in this mock, because we typically are viewing these mocks as kind of a super flex tight end premium type situation, which I think most people are playing these days. And I think Colston Loveland has like the biggest upside out of all of these tight ends. And I think possibly the biggest upside out of all of the receivers in the Chicago Bears receiving room. Even Luther Burden, even Romo Duze, even whoever the hell they drafted, Xavier Williams or whatever. Like Colston Loveland, I think, has the highest ceiling to just become that safety valve. He can run those slot routes outside, split out a little bit wider. He can be a good on the field, quite regularly tight end for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, exactly. 89% route participation last year when he was on the field, Chris. Let's see, 31% out of the slot, 25% out wide. Like, they're moving him all over. And we've seen the progression now with offenses in the NFL moving to heavier sets, man. That move tight end is valuable. He's going to get that intermediate level of the field work in the slot too. Just lined up all over, man. He's a mismatch. He's a weapon, tied with Ben Johnson and my guy, former Trojan Caleb Williams, man. I love Colston Loveland, man. I took him at 201 in a 0.75 tight end premium startup. I mean, without hesitation. I thought it was a pretty easy pick for me. But let's go ahead and recap this, and we'll move on to the second round.
All right, so 107, Carnell Tate from this year's rookie class. 108, Jordan Tyson, again from this year's rookie class. 109, quarterback Jackson Dart from last year's rookie class. 110, Cam Coleman, wide receiver of next year's rookie class. Dante Moore, quarterback 2 of next year's rookie class. And Colston Loveland from last year's rookie class, rounding out our first round. To the second round, starting again with one of Josh's picks, Fernando Mendoza. And I really like this pick right here. Both of us weren't like super high on Mendoza coming into the year. Even kind of coming into the draft, we weren't super high on him. But honestly, the more that I have watched this tape, just the Indiana season was so impressive. Arguably the most impressive season in the history of college football. Undefeated, went to the title. He won the Heisman. He's the 101 pick. He got the Triple Crown. What a guy. And as he progressed throughout the season, depending on the weeks that you watch his tape, he's really showed that poise that you want out of that type of receiver. So quarterback. Maybe he's not the most talented with arm strength. Maybe he's not the most talented rushing quarterback, but he has that pinpoint accuracy and he really knows how to process the game at an extremely high level. And that's what makes him stand out, I think. And that's why the Raiders were happy to take him at 101, because he's a fantastic quarterback who I think can step in immediately and become a force for their offense. I expect some rookie bumps for him, but I think that as he adjusts, he's proven that he can overcome anything that's thrown at him. And even with this kind of, down receiving core that he has with him right now, other than Brock Bowers, I think that he's going to show us some things this year that's going to make him rise a little bit in dynasty value.
Yeah, I know we were both down on him. I think just from like a trades perspective, I didn't see him as this elite tier guy. I still don't, but something I need to practice what I preach, Chris, because I often talk about when you're scouting quarterbacks, don't forget about the mental traits as well. And I think that's where he excels, right? We've talked about him being a leader out there, talking about he's going to die. He's going to put his body on the line for his team. That shit gets me fired up, Chris. I don't know about you. So I know that it fires up his teammates. And I do like the pairing of him with Clint Kubiak there. Obviously, Tom Brady there too to mentor him and just really build this team. I do trust I trust the ecosystem that he's in. So I'm in more now than I was pre-draft. Even though I knew he was going to the Raiders, it's like getting more time to think about it. It's like, okay, I could be in on this guy.
Coming up right here at 202, Cam Ward, similar in the same vein as Fernando Mendoza, a guy who wasn't really big Devy asset. He came into his final year in college and really proved that he could become a fantastic quarterback at the NFL. He was also a 101 last year. He went to the Tennessee Titans. Again, weak supporting class, but we've seen things on film that are very impressive. He knows how to process the game. When I was watching his tape from last year's NFL season, he reminded me a lot of when I was watching Josh Hoover this year at TCU, where you have that extreme arm talent and you have those absolute flashes where you know that there's a good quarterback locked in there somewhere. I think he's obviously a better quarterback than Josh Hoover, but the same kinds of things were showing up on tape where one play he'd make a mistake, the other play he'd make an absolute maniac throw that you're like, how can anybody do this? So Cam Ward's ceiling is extremely high, and obviously pairing him with Carnell Tate is going to be great for his future. They're doing what they can to prove in Nashville that he's going to be the future. And again, with Brian Daboll down there, I trust that guy a lot as an offensive coordinator, especially because he has shown that he can get the most out of his quarterbacks, which is fantastic. And I think Cam Ward is still a little bit under. I think he's close to where he should be valued, but a little bit undervalued. I think people are sleeping on him. So depending on your league, go out and throw a trade out for Cam Ward because he might be great for you, especially if you need a super flex option or a QB2 option. He's still being a little bit slept on, and the future is looking bright for Cam Ward.
Yeah, I like this, Chris. At 201 and 202, we have back-to-back first overall picks in the NFL draft with Fernando Mendoza and now Cam Ward here at 202 in this draft. Look, I love Cam Ward, man. You mentioned him with Brian Daboll. I'm all in on that pairing. Brian Daboll, now they drafted him Carnell Tate. And in this offense with Brian Daboll, I've mentioned it a few times, he likes to funnel the targets to his primary wide receiver. You could go back to his time in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs. You can go just recently to Malik Nabers' first season with the New York Giants there. He likes to really have the offense funnel through that. And Cam Ward is a guy that's going to target his primary. I mean, we saw it with Xavier Restrepo there in Miami. That was a dude that he just locked in, and man, they had a beautiful connection there in college. Thing with Cam Ward, though, man, I mean, he throws some unnecessary balls sometimes, just believing in that arm talent. I think he's just naturally that type of guy with the moxie. But the big knock on him coming into the NFL was, time to throw. He holds the ball a little long. Here in his first starting season, 2.98 time to throw. Almost 3 seconds, that's way too long in the NFL. A little bit of that data is skewed with him trying to run around and make some magic, but still, I saw it too many times where he was just not getting rid of the ball. And again, part of that is they didn't really have the best wide receivers there, right? Like overall talent in that offense was lacking. You get a severe injection of talent and youth with the Carnell Tate pick there this season. So I like it here, man. I think that it's a pretty good value.
Yeah, and even with that holding of the ball, you mentioned it, he doesn't have the best receiving core out there. He showed up on last year's NFL Advanced Analytics as one of the best at avoiding sacks. Projected sacks versus what actually occurred. He really nailed it. I think he was number one in the NFL, depending on which stat it was. I can't remember the exact stat, but he's proven that he's a little bit more advanced than people are giving him credit for. At 203, we had Bryant Wesco, receiver out of Clemson, who will be in next year's class. He is a lanky guy, but he really can kind of do it all. He's got some nice top end speed. He runs decent routes. The biggest thing that's kind of been left on the field for him is the overall statistics, the actual pure stats that you want to see. I think a lot of that was just the down season that Clemson had last year. Klubnik, who did get drafted, which was almost like remarkable after the season that he had. Klubnik was not throwing the ball as well as we projected coming into the year. And Bryant Wesco was a victim of that. But I think Bryant Wesco's talent is still there. I think he has that upside. And that's why I think that he's a great choice here as one of the earlier receivers taken from the 2027 class in this mock.
Yeah, I mean, Klubnik definitely played a factor. Probably the big time injury he had too, where he missed time. He's looking like he's going to be healthy though, coming back into the season. If you don't know, Brian Wesco did fall down. It took a pretty nasty. He fell down on his head and like his neck twisted and conjoined. It looked pretty nasty out there. Obviously, when you see that type of injury, you immediately think of Justin Ross, the former Clemson wide receiver. And of course, when it happened, that was the fear that everybody had. But Dabo Swinney quickly put those fears to rest, and he said he's going to be ready. He's looking good to go. But man, when he was on the field, he was incredible, Chris. 2.62 yards per route run in this last season. Had under 600 receiving yards, but again, missed a lot of time with injury, and then just the entire Clemson team just fell apart last season. So I struggle with Bryant Wesco, Chris, because I love the talent. I love this player. I have a lot of Devy shares. Hell, I made some trades with him after the injury went down. But I just don't know about the production profile this season with Chris Vicenia or whoever's going to win that battle. It's a bunch of mid quarterbacks there right now. So I'm a little worried about Clemson offensively from the quarterback position, getting the ball to these talented wide receivers and Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore. So I have some hesitation because he's a guy that I have listed as pretty likely to return to school and actually enter in 2028. But if he were to enter, I think that this would be a decent range for him to go purely based on talent, right? I mean, when he's out there, he's a little lanky, like you said, but he's fast and he will put his body on the line, much like Jordan Tyson, to make the catch. So I know you're not a big Bryant Wesco guy, but those of us that love him, we love him, Chris. I think about him all the time. Like, what could have been had the man not gone down? Because he was cooking, man. Before the injury, dude was absolutely cooking out there.
Yeah, I still think I need to be a little bit more in on him, maybe. I don't know. I got to watch some more tape. Maybe it's just my Clemson hate. I'm not really sure. But just for you guys listening out there, so the way we did this was a reverse. So I had Fernando Mendoza, Dustin had Cam Ward, Ben had Bryant Wesco, and then Josh had our next pick at 204, which is Luther Burden. I didn't hate this pick. I feel like his value is a little bit elevated in Dynasty right now. Overall, as I mentioned, I think that Colston Loveland might be the best receiving option in that offense, and it feels like there's a lot of mouths to feed in the Chicago Bears offense. But he really came on late, just like Loveland did, and showed what he can do. And I will say, our favorite stats at the Devy Dojo is yards per route run, and Luther Burden killed it as a rookie with 2.69 yards per route run, which is second best of any rookie wide receiver since 2010, second to only Odell Beckham Jr. That is astounding. And it seemed like when he was on the field, he was getting the ball. They didn't put him on the field as much as we might have liked to see out of a rookie wide receiver, but he really did start to eat, especially towards the end of the year. And they had a pretty good year there with first-year coach Ben Johnson coming in and taking over the reins with a lot of these young guys, Odunze, Caleb, Burden, they're all year one, year two guys last year. And Burden kind of stepped up. Loveland, Burden kind of stepped up and became one of those great overall versatile receivers. He seems to me like he's going to be a bit more of a slot receiver in the NFL, which isn't a bad thing. I think that it just depends on your overall projection of him. For me, he's a bit of a dynasty sell just because people really do seem to love him right now. But value-wise, I really enjoy this pick.
I loved him at Mizzou when he was in college, man. He was a lot of fun. There was a big debate entering that season, that college season, between Tetairoa McMillan and Luther Burden. For a lot of people, they had Luther Burden listed a little higher, but I think he was seen as more of like a yak guy and not a true alpha. Man, he got a fun landing spot in the Chicago Bears, man.
I took a 205, Harold Fannin Jr., and this was a tough pick for me because I already took Loveland, and as I mentioned, I really like Tyler Warren too, but I think after what we've seen from last year on the field, Harold Fannin proved that he has the higher upside as a receiver, especially now with Njoku gone from the Cleveland Browns. And I know, again, talk about mouths to feed. They just drafted two extremely talented wide receivers, and they still don't have a quarterback. But what we saw out of Fannin last year was explosive, exactly the thing we saw out of him coming from a smaller conference team out of college. He can just dominate. When you watch him play football, he is an absolute beast at the tight end position. Receiving upside is through the roof. So when I was debating, am I going to take Warren here? Am I going to take Fannin? I had to lean Fannin. I actually took both of them in a startup recently, back to back, because I was like, I just want to do the 1-2 punch at tight end, especially in tight end premium leagues. I don't care. I'll throw one of those guys in my flex if I have to, because I like both of their upside. But when I'm talking about absolute ceiling, I think Fannin might have the bigger ceiling than even Tyler Warren at this point.
I loved this pick, Chris. I kept saying, "Man, you're the only one thinking about tight ends in this draft, man. You took Loveland, you took Fanning. Like, I think some of our Devy bias came in, where we traditionally fade tight ends. Again, some more free Devy game theory for you. We're kind of taught to fade those tight ends, and I think that was affecting some of our thought processes in this board. But not you, Shifu. You're too smart for that, man.
I love tight ends in dynasty formats, but I hate them in Devy formats. You know what I mean? Well, I love them everywhere. Yeah, I like them. I like them in real life too. Tight ends are great. But yeah, I was happy to take Harold Fannin Jr. here. I would have taken him a little bit higher, I think, than a couple of these guys. But I feel like in general, so far, this draft has gone pretty well as far as values go. There wasn't too many that I was like, I didn't love that. Moving on, this was your pick, Nick Marsh, who is now moving to be the Indiana wide receiver one. Very excited about that because both of us really enjoyed him last year. And obviously, Michigan State isn't the place to be if you want to A, make NIL money, and B, make it in the NFL. So I thought that this was a good spot for you to take him. I might have even considered taking him over Brian Wesco.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you at 206 here. Taking Nick Marsh felt like, man. I mean, potentially wide receiver 3 in 2027 behind Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman, presumably, would be Nick Marsh for me. So I loved this value, and take the notes and everything that I said about Cam Coleman and just put it here for Nick Marsh, right? He escaped a hellhole in Michigan State. Um, I mean, he had Aiden Childs throwing him the football last year. Chris, nobody's going to survive in that environment, but he flashed a lot. His first big breakout game versus Maryland, I believe, as a freshman, went for over 100 yards and a touchdown. He really flashed. He's a lot faster than people think for a guy who's 6'3". He's pretty fast and athletic out there. He's more than just a vertical guy, though. This last season, he had a lot more lower ADOT stuff and getting some more yards after the catch. And so I liked to see that element of his game developed. And now he's going with Curt Cignetti, man, to Indiana. The man finally escaped Michigan State, and he's going to have a chance to immediately compete for a national title because I don't think that Indiana fell off at all. Yes, they lost Mendoza. Yes, they lost Elijah Surratt. Yes, they lost Omar Cooper Jr. They lost a lot of talent, but now they have insert Josh Hoover as quarterback, who's decent. Like, he's good enough to get the ball to these playmakers. And they got Nick Marsh, man. They got Charlie Becker out there. They got a lot of good talent. And so I love this for Nick Marsh's NFL projection. I love it because this could be entering his draft his best season, and he would be an early declare if he goes in. All the analytical marks that we look at, it matches with what I see on tape. Because while the overall production profile might not look good for some of these 2027 guys, if you were going back to last year, some of our top wide receivers who were taken this year, their production profile wasn't the best. So he's one of those guys that's entering the year, and I think that he's gonna smash, man. I don't ever doubt Curt Cignetti anymore. In my eyes, he's the new age Nick Saban. He could do no wrong, right? He's gonna have these guys ready to play, and he's gonna make them pros.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. Like, he's a fantastic coach. Everybody should be giving him that same kind of gravitas that they gave Nick Saban before because he's fantastic. He's proven it at smaller schools, and now he's proven it in Indiana. So if he believes Nick Marsh, I sure as hell believe in Nick Marsh. So just to recap the first half of the second round, 201 Fernando Mendoza, obviously 101 of the 2026 class, 202 Cam Ward, 101 of the 2025 class, 203 Bryant Wesco, wide receiver of next year's class, 204 Luther Burton from the 2025 class as a wide receiver, 205 Harold Fannin Jr., tight end out of last year's class, and Nick Marsh at 206, future on. Ahmad Hardy was taken at 207, and this was interesting to me because if you remember from last week's episode, I was torn and I took Kewan Lacey over Ahmad Hardy. And I'm a little bit, this is a spoiler, but Kewan Lacey will not make it for the rest of the second round. So I was a little bit, torn when I was taking them last week. I think Ahmad Hardy's a fantastic prospect, though. Missed tackles forced is one of our favorite metrics, and he has proven that he can do that both at smaller schools and now at Mizzou. He's a very talented running back. We've seen him last year. Did he lead all college backs in yardage, I believe? Or was he top 2?
Technically, he was second if you include some CFF guys, but in the Power Four, he led it pretty remarkably. He was number one in the
Yeah,
Power Four.
fantastic year out of him. So the wheels are very much up. And, we've talked even earlier in this episode about not necessarily projecting running backs in the NFL, but he's one that we could project safely to be a force in the NFL once he gets there.
Yeah, man, this is smash. This is 2027 RB1 taken at 207 in a combined mock. I love Ahmad Hardy. People are going to say he can't catch the football. I would say he's not asked to catch the football. I think he's able to take dump offs and screens and things like that. Like he's a functional wide receiver. Is he going to run option routes out there and be dynamic like a Jahmyr Gibbs? Hell no. He's more like Mark Henry, man. He's going to knock an MF over. He's going to stiff arm somebody to the grave. He's going to carry 5 people to the end zone, and he's going to get chunk plays. Like he's that type of running back. Maybe not elite speed, any like elite athleticism, but he's just a dog, man. Like, I love my dogs, man. And that's what Ahmad Hardy is. He's so much fun. He's in a really good running system, so he's going to be productive. Like the 1,600 yards that he just had entering when he transferred up from a lower level program to the SEC at Mizzou, right? I think he's going to smash again. Like he's just going to run it back, and he's going to enter 2027 probably as most people's RB1, maybe RB2, 1B, something along those lines. But super talented, and to get him here at 207 in a combined, I think is a little bit of a steal because we are valuing the NFL guys. Look, Ahmad Hardy, man, I don't know if he's a first round level. Like I said in last week's episode, I wouldn't say that Ahmad Hardy and Kwan Lacey are at the Ashton Jeanty level or Jeremiah Love level
Agreed.
yet. But I mean, I think that they're pretty close, and at least in 2027, it seems like a deep running back class overall. So
Yeah, this was a great pick, and notably, this was our first running back taken in over a round, not since 106 with Omarion Hampton. So it was a great spot to take Quinshawn Judkins at 208, who was fantastic last year. Not necessarily the guy that you might have wanted if you were playing fantasy and you drafted him to be like your elite league winner, but he proved last year that he could really be a talented running back in the NFL, especially yards after contact. His metrics were right up there with Jeanty, like elite yards after the contact metrics. And he can be a workhorse. He could receive the ball a little bit. He could run the ball on all 3 downs. He can be your goal line back. And now he gets Todd Monken coming in to absolutely smash the running game. We know what he can do with the running game. So I'm excited about Quinshawn Judkins. He's a guy who I feel like was underrated even coming into last year. And I feel like he's extremely underrated right now because it's the Browns, right? And they keep adding all of these wide receivers, but they have nobody to throw to them. They're talking about maybe they're hoping that Watson can be their quarterback one. I mean, are we going to see Watson from 6 years ago? You know what I mean? Before everything else happened? I doubt it. You know what I mean? Shedeur Sanders was not great. So they're going to have to lean on the run. So this was a very good pick, I feel like, at 208.
yeah, he's perennially been slept on. I think. I mean, even when he was paired with Travion at Ohio State, I mean, they paid him a lot of money, but people were just sleeping on him throughout that whole draft process. Obviously, we know that. I liked him. A lot of people in the dojo liked him. I really enjoyed his film last season for Cleveland. I mean, he still put up over 800 yards as a rookie. You mentioned his yards after contact, over 700. I mean, dude's really good. He's just in a terrible spot, but I think that for fantasy, he's going to be more than productive. So I'd be happy with this pick here. I think that he could be even better going down the road. I mean, Cleveland, it's a new regime and they've been very unstable. And I believe I talked about this last week, and it's always hard when you have all these regime changes and different types of draft picks and picks that were made for this type of offense that now aren't. So maybe if Todd Monken can stabilize this franchise and start getting his guys, we'll start to see a team that looks, more like an NFL contender, where we're happier where these guys go to their landing spots. It's still Cleveland, so I'm not going to hold my breath, but I do love Judkins, man. I think that, again, said it the last few picks, this is really good value for a guy that has already showed that he could do it.
It is fun, and notably, there's been not very many 2026 picks, in this draft so far, which we mentioned at the top. This is giving you a good comparison of the classes around. Up next, we have yet another Ohio State player. This was my pick, Emeka Egbuka, and it was hard to take him here, to be honest, because he flashed so much early in the year, and then he completely fell off when the rest of the receiving core was healthy. However, Mike Evans is gone. He's in San Francisco now. Godwin's getting a little bit older. Egbuka should, in theory, be the wide receiver one in Baker Mayfield's offense. I think I projected him more as like a slot guy in the NFL, and I still think that's the best fit for him. But he was being used a little bit on the outside as well. And with Godwin kind of being more that slot guy, they can both do both outside and slot. So we'll see how they utilize them this year. They also added Ted Hurst, and they still have Jalen McMillan lurking there too. So it'll be very interesting to see how they, make this offense run here in 2026. But there's no reason that Egbuka shouldn't be the wide receiver one in that room. So I think that 800 yards is probably his floor. I think that he's got the talent to get there. I think that he's being a little bit slept on because of how low he was. He fell off after those first month or so. So we'll see what the future holds. But when I'm taking the overall profile, when I'm taking what happened last year and I'm taking the future, kind of projecting it a bit, I was happy to get him here 209. I had considered him a little bit earlier. At 210, we have Darian Mensah, which I believe was one of your picks. I was a little bit surprised, actually. There was one or two quarterbacks that I thought might have been higher on your board, but I know that you're pretty excited about Mensah, and as we are here at the dojo, we do get excited about some of those Miami quarterbacks because they've been doing a great job of turning these guys over as transfers and making them something. Even Carson Beck, out of nowhere, he was an early-ish round draft, like mid-round draft pick, earlier than we expected, and now he's going to be a Cardinals quarterback.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Everybody knows that I love Darian Mensah, Chris. When I mentioned earlier that there was a quarterback where I took Dante Moore that I was thinking about, it was this guy right here, Darian Mensah, man. I love him, man. Going back to Tulane. He obviously had to sit a year at Tulane, and then the next year he was third on the depth chart, had to work his way up, and he became the season starter. Obviously, last season transferred to Duke, really, really broke out. Now he transferred again to Miami. In the Shannon Dawson offense, man, he just profiles as like the perfect element of what they needed last year because they could have won a national championship, Chris, if Beck could have hit a deep ball consistently, and that just wasn't Beck's strong suit. Like he was very well into the intermediate level of the field, but if you ask Carson Beck to push it down vertically, he was not very consistent. Darian Mensah, that is his superpower, man. He throws such a good deep ball. I've talked about it ad nauseum here. And now you pair him with Malachi Toney, one of the best offensive lines in college football. Still have Mark Fletcher. They brought Cooper Barkate, his number one target from Duke, there too. They got Samorian Wingo, really talented freshman. They got a lot of pieces there at Miami. And of course, like you mentioned, we know the status that a Miami quarterback will be put onto. And I think that Darian Mensah is going to get that national exposure. He's going to be a Heisman contender. A lot of eyes are going to be on this kid. And analytically, I think when you zoom out and look at the whole picture as he's entering the draft, you're going to see a really, really good production profile going back to Tulane, to Duke, and now to Miami. And an underrated part of like this NIL transfer era, these quarterbacks like Mensah, that is third team in 3 years, they are picking up new offensive systems and showing that they can ball out. And that is huge in the NFL, right? I mean, you're not going to have the same level of comfort and same consistent offenses usually year in to year out. You're going to have to learn a new system, or if you enter free agency, you got to learn and pick up those things up to speed. So he's showing me that he has those pro level capabilities already. And translating for fantasy, Chris, I mean, he doesn't have elite rushing upside, but he's a lot like Cam Ward in that he's going to move around and make magic happen and then keep his eyes downfield and throw it, man. And if we can get Malachi Toney more deep work, last year because of Carson Beck, it started off with some deep work with him, but then you slowly started seeing more closer to the line of scrimmage and some intermediate stuff. If we could get Malachi Toney going deep with this dude, it's going to be so much fun. So this is a guy at 210, Darian Mensah. I think that this time next year, we're going to be talking a lot higher about like he should be taken higher. We're going to be saying that this time next year. Book it.
Terrific insight from the sensei as far as the NIL era and translating to different offenses as you transfer. I really like that because that's great. It was one of Josh's picks, but I feel like I am equipped to talk about him, and you are as well as a USC fan. But he landed in Philadelphia, and I think that's why everybody's kind of down on him right now because they're worried that, again, Jalen Hurts, bringing him up again, can't throw over the middle. But we've both talked about some different articles and some different offensive ideas. It seems like they're going to force Jalen Hurts to do things that he's uncomfortable with. There was that whole big hit piece coming out on him about he doesn't like to do XYZ. We're projecting A.J. Brown to be gone. He's a great pairing with Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith can run outside. He's proven it. He can run inside if he wants to as well. He's a great slot receiver. Mekhi Lemon is another great slot receiver. The biggest question mark for me is they also drafted Stowers, which is basically another slot receiver. So they have essentially three extremely talented slot receivers who can do a little bit of other things, but it's going to be interesting to see how Sean Mannion comes in there and changes the offense. At 212, though, this is a great bet on talent because he should have gone a lot higher than a lot of these guys. The draft has clearly dampened his overall value, but I think this is a smash pick to end the second round.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, oh, for me and a lot of other people, this was our wide receiver one entering the 2026 draft. I'm not too worried about the landing spot, Chris, but I'm always team talent over situation. I think that they drafted this dude with an intention. I mean, hell, they traded up to take him, cucking the Steelers, like you said last week. So um, obviously they have a plan for him. They have a plan for Stowers. The question is going to be Jalen Hurts, whether you want to hear it or not. I don't think that it's a Jalen Hurts inability to throw to the middle of the field. I think, like you mentioned to me off camera, it's a tendency thing, right? It's a comfortability thing, and he's gonna have to be uncomfortable. Like, just that's a natural part of human growth. Is you're gonna have to do things that you're not comfortable with. And when defenses know how you're gonna attack, you're gonna have to adapt. Jalen Hurts. So they got a lot of weapons. How is he gonna pair with Eli Stowers? I don't know, yet to be seen, but I believe in the talent, man. This dude is incredible. He could do a lot of other things too. They can move Mekhi Lemon around if they really want. They could get him the ball in space and just let him work. I mean, the sky's the limit. I really like this landing spot more than other people, I think, just because the Philadelphia Eagles are a winning culture. They're a winning program, and they draft really well. They have the best GM in the NFL. Like, I don't think that he just willy-nilly said, I'm going to take Mekhi Lemon because he's the best on the board. No, I think that they had a plan. They knew that Pittsburgh was going to take him, and they did everything in their power to get in front of him and take this man. So I'm all in, but of course, fight on, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'm all in too. I'm very excited about the landing spot as an Eagles fan, but I do agree with that. I think Howie and Nick are not going to take a guy and not use him, right? They have a plan for him. They're going to make it work. The future is brighter than people are making it seem. So as a quick recap of the second half of the second round, 207, Ahmad Hardy, running back from next year's class. 208, Quinshawn Judkins, running back from last year's class. 209, Emeka Egbuka, his teammate from last year's class, wide receiver of Tampa Bay. 210, the new quarterback at Miami, next year's class, Darian Mensah. 211, tight end Tyler Warren from last year's class. And 212, this year's class, Mekhi Lemon, the newest receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles. And before I kick it to the Devy Sensei, my good friend Dustin, I just wanted to say thanks to all of you that have listened, especially if you've made it this far, because we've really seen some great support. We went independent a week ago. We love you guys. You've made it show to us that this is really a good decision for us to have made, and we appreciate all the support we've got. So thank you. Please like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. Share it with your friends. But we love all the listeners, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off what Chris said. Like, the support that we've received has been tremendous. I think that we already had a really good community, and that support was shown through in that initial launch week. So we do just, again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. It makes doing this worth it. We have families too and wives that sometimes get mad. So having that support there definitely does make it easier. It really does. So if you're not in the community, you need to join now. I got the link to the free Devy Dojo Discord in the description of this episode. If you're listening on Spotify or wherever you receive your podcasts, it will be in that description as well. And additionally, I would like to throw out that if you are listening to the audio version of this on the Player Profiler podcast, then you're missing out on the video version on Spotify. You need to go over to the Devy Dojo version on Spotify and check us out there, where we will have the video complement of this audio episode as well. So that is going to do it. Next week, stay tuned, because we're going to keep this going, Chris. There's too many names that we left on the board, man. There's a lot of good names left, so we're going to finish it off with rounds 3 and 4 of this combined 25, 26, and 27 mock draft. But until then, remember to trust your training.